Okay, so during this chapter, we've been looking at how populations can change through birth rate, death rate, immigration, emigration. And then we kind of discussed some density independent factors as well as density dependent factors. And so this last section of this chapter talks about human population and kind of like, just applying some of those principles to our species, humans. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of human population and how it's changed over time, and then look at population growth rates between different countries and what that means for us and maybe for some other nations. So the historical overview of the human population is that our population has increased over time, and that's no surprise. We know that. You guys know that. You've heard that. And growth at first was very slow due to food scarcity. There was a lot of diseases that we didn't have cures for, so people died at younger ages. In the Wild West, you could get attacked by an animal. I mean, you could still get attacked by an animal, but I'm just saying that there were more predators, if you will. And so death rates were really high in our early Earth history, but that has changed a lot. Now, human population growth is exponential. Our countries all over the world have become more developed. Their food supplies more reliable. Sanitation has improved. Medicine has improved. Public health has dramatically reduced death rates in a lot of parts of the world. I'm not saying every part of the world, but in a lot of parts of the world. And so now we're seeing a change in birth rates, how our birth rates are really high, our death rates are really low, we're living to a longer age, and so now we have this exponential growth. And so your book actually talks about how fast has the human population increased. And so it said it took 123 years for the human population to double from 1 billion in 1804 to 2 billion in 1927. And then after that, 33 years for it to grow another billion. And since that time, our population has increased dramatically in shorter periods of time. So here's a graph just showing each one of these people stands for a billion people. And so from 1987 to just 1999, 12 years, we increased another billion. And then to go from 99 to 2012, so, do the math, I think it's another 12 years. I'm terrible at math. Actually, I probably messed up on my math right here. No, I didn't. Anyways, another billion. And so they're estimating that by 2042, our population will have increased. It's at 9.369 billion. That's the estimate anyways. So patterns of human population growth is called demography. So that's the study of human populations. We will talk a little bit about characteristics of human populations. And some of these characteristics are used to try to explain how populations have changed. So birth rates, death rates, and most importantly, the age structure of the population can help predict whether we will have continued high growth rates or maybe our growth rates will decrease. Your book has a definition called demographic transition, a dramatic change from high birth rates and death rates to low birth rates and death rates. And I think we're kind of starting to see that in the United States. Back in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, we kind of had like the baby boom. After World War II, people settling down, starting families. We had high birth rates. People were living longer, low death rates. And now we're starting to see a low birth rate with also a low death rate because people are waiting to start families. Or, I just think about myself. Like my mom had her first kid when she was like 18, 19, and I didn't have mine till I was like, 28 or my late 20s or something like that. But demographic transition is broken down into 3 stages where you have birth rate and death rate that are equally high, but then the death rate begins to fall because, maybe medicines are improved or conditions have improved for that population, and birth rates remain high. And then, for some reason, your birth rate falls to meet the death rate, and you get a very slow population growth. So here's a graph just showing the demographic transition where birth rate, death rate are equally high, but then your death rate falls and your birth rate remains high, so maybe like that baby boom. And then after that, the birth rate starts to fall and it meets the death rate, and your growth rate is pretty much 0. So one way you can tell whether or not a demographic transition has taken place is to look at the age structure of that population. So your book has a figure here where we're looking at Niger, United States, and Japan. And you can kind of see that Niger, which is located in, I believe, Africa, has a very rapid growth rate. And how you can tell is by looking at these bars. If you see the bars that are bigger towards the bottom, okay, so this is age, a lot of young individuals here, that means you're going to see a lot of positive growth. So if you see like this pyramid shape or Eiffel Tower shape, yeah, that means they're going through rapid growth. Now the United States, you can kind of see we have a lot of individuals here because those people were born during the baby boom, but our pyramid, if you will, is not as big, or our base is not as big as Niger. And so we're actually kind of seeing a slow growth rate. We're still growing in the United States, but our growth rate has decreased. And then you take a look at Japan, where Japan has a lot of elderly people, and people are not getting married, people are remaining single. There's actually, you can read a lot of stories about Japan and this unique society, but they actually have a negative growth rate where they don't have a lot of young individuals at all. So just by looking at this age structure, it tells a story about what's going on in that country. So that does it for 5.3, human population growth. Just talk about how our human population is increasing exponentially due to improvements, conditions that have improved, and then just looking at population growth rates between different countries. So that does it for chapter 5.